Welcome back to Win the Day. This is Jacob Wirka filling in for Pastor Nat. And today we're going to look at, where does true wisdom come from? As a teacher and as a seminary student, I do a lot of studying. Studying is a great thing. You can gain a lot of knowledge. But as I look at the Bible, I'm reminded that knowledge is not the same thing as wisdom. You can study all you want, but you can't make yourself wise. In James chapter 3, verses 13 through 15, James is speaking on this idea of wisdom when he says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness and wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth." This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but it is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. Verse 13 shows us that true wisdom is not just academic knowledge in our heads, but a level of understanding put into practice and lived out in our lives. Simply put, this is how I know the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is having a lot of information stored up in your head. Wisdom is knowing how and when to apply it and live it out. James goes on to explain that we demonstrate our meekness and demonstrate wisdom through how we live. Now, meekness is a strange word. I recently learned that meekness is not just gentleness or being weak, but having power and knowing when and how to use it. This means that somebody living out meekness is living in control and in submission to a higher authority. Biblically speaking, a wise and meek person seeks to follow God and use their abilities when and how God says to use them. In contrast to this control and submission to God, in verse 14, James talks about the opposite sort of wisdom. James tells us that jealousy and envy and selfish ambition rule the hearts of those who don't want to walk in wisdom or truth, but live out what is false. James warns these people not to boast in their selfish ambition, which makes me wonder, when we try to give wisdom or instruction to others, who is it really for? Are we trying to help other people and guide them? Or are we just trying to sound smart and build up our ego? Godly wisdom is not self-seeking, but it is God-honoring. At the end of this passage in verse 15, James shows us that there are different kinds of wisdom. There is a true and a godly wisdom that comes down from above. And therefore, there must also be a different type of wisdom that doesn't come from God. That comes from the world. There's a lot of earthly wisdom that sounds good, like wise-sounding sayings that you find in a fortune cookie or from a horoscope reading from your zodiac sign, but that will never ultimately get you anywhere. Now that's because this kind of man-made wisdom is evil and demonic. Only the wisdom of God shows us the way to truth. So, if we know that heavenly wisdom comes from heaven as a gift from God, will we be humble enough to ask for it? We know that God loves to give good gifts to His children, and He especially wants to give His wisdom so that we might know how to walk with Him through our whole lives and bring glory to Him and not to ourselves.